Whoops. Sorry. Welcome. Happy New Year, everyone. This is our first public meeting of the Halton District School Board for Wednesday, January 11th, 2017. I have to remember to say 2017. I'd like to welcome everyone in our audience and to our special guests that we'll recognize shortly. And I would like to acknowledge the fact that Superintendent Blackwell and Hunt Gibbons are absent tonight, and Trustee Daniele will be joining us later. Other than that, I believe everyone else is here. I would like to remind you that we are video voice recorded and we are being broadcast out onto the web, so wave to your friends and family. And I'd like to remind you, if you haven't already done it, to please silence anything that may make noise, your phone, your computer, the person with you. Anyways, I'd also like to share the Halton District School Board acknowledges and thanks the First Peoples of this territory and other Indigenous people for the use of this land in order for us to continue our work today. So our first item is approval of our agenda. Can I have a motion to approve the agenda? Trustee Gerbentz, seconded by Trustee Gray. Is there any discussion on approving the agenda tonight? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that passes unanimously. Thank you very much. I'd like to ask, is there any declarations of possible conflict of interest tonight? Seeing none, we'll move on to communication to the board and presentations. And we are honored tonight to have presentations for our Inspire Awards. The Inspire Awards the recipients have been nominated by peers, students, parents, or community organizations. These individuals and or groups are caring, innovative, and creative, and are exemplary in taking initiative to make a positive difference in the lives of our students. Family and friends are invited to come and take photos during the presentation, and then invited to meet their award recipients in the lobby after the presentation. So in this presentation tonight of the Inspire Awards, we are honoring 3 different individuals and groups at this board meeting. The recipients who are here this evening have elected to receive there are other recipients that are not here this evening that are elected to receive their award at school or workplace. So I would like to invite Trustee L. Harrison up. Our first award, Inspire Award tonight is being presented to Emily Duran. Come on up, Emily. Emily Duran is a volunteer at T.A. Blakelock High School in Oakville, where she has introduced mindfulness and social-emotional learning activities to students. According to her nominator, Jeff Catania, and the school principal, Dean Barnes, Emily's impact on student well-being, peace, and self-awareness has been profound. Her work with students who refer to her as the Peace Lady helps to create a safe and warm classroom environment. Congratulations on inspiring our students and our staff. Thank you. So Emily, if you could just come up and step off to the side over here. I'd like to ask Trustee Gerbentz to please come up. Our next Inspire Award honoree is Diana Bauer, a familiar face to our boardroom. Come on up, Diana. Diana is no stranger to this room. Diana has been nominated by the M.M. Robinson High School teacher Stephanie Clapham for her tireless advocating for change at the high school level for students with intellectual and developmental disabilities. Specifically, Diana's persisted in bringing forth the fact that students, people with intellectual and or developmental disabilities could do more if provided opportunities like those provided to other students in apprenticeship and college programs. The result of her persistence is the development of the Employability Skills Certificate. Diana has continued to be an active member of the M.M. Robinson School Council and advocates for all students. Congratulations, Diana, for being such an inspiration to us all. Our next honorees are the staff. I'd like to invite Leah Reynolds to present to. Our honorees are the staff at the Fielding Dental Office. If you'd like to come on up. Is it just Dr. Fielding who's coming up, or is all of them? I believe all of them should come up. Who have been nominated for their support of the Burlington Central High School Breakfast Program. The Fielding Dental staff arrive early at the school to prepare and serve breakfast to more than 100 students, helping them with a positive start to their day with a healthy breakfast. Although nominated by the Burlington Central High School staff for this award, we are aware that the Fielding Dental Office staff have been supportive at numerous other schools in Burlington. Thank you very much for being such an inspiration and making a difference to our students. I would like to ask that you all stay here because we're going to have, you get the honor of having a picture taken with the director and myself.
Did you email me the presentation for tonight? It's the same one? Okay, thank you. I'm just going to circulate it.
Leslie, what happened? You were with a whole bunch of people a few minutes.
So now that we've all been inspired, we'll continue with our inspiration. We welcome Leslie Mansfield from the Halton Learning Foundation to give us a presentation on fundraising. Welcome, Leslie. Yes, please. You can stand or sit, whatever you're more comfortable.
Just turn on the mic. Now, actually, Leslie, if you don't mind sitting, only because our cameras are situated that way and because the meeting is broadcast.
Welcome, Leslie. And when you're ready.
Thank you very much, Chair Amos. And thank you very much on behalf of the Halton Learning Foundation for the opportunity to address everyone here this evening about what the Halton Learning Foundation does and a little bit about our fundraising plan that I believe you have in front of you. Our mandate for the Halton Learning Foundation, which is your foundation, is straightforward. It's to eliminate financial barriers to education and provide a measure of equity to all students. Our fundraising plan this year is pretty straightforward and pretty simple. Our mandate is to raise $756,000 this year for scholarships, school grants, and funding for our Eliminating Barriers program. I'm going to describe each of them briefly to you so you have an idea in terms of why we fundraise and who we support. First of all, scholarships. HLF manages over 52 different scholarships, respecting and supporting all paths to post-secondary education for students. Some are funded by the Halton Learning Foundation directly, and some are funded through wonderful support by individual donors who just want an opportunity to be able to give back to the students who may not be able to have the funding available so they can pursue their dreams after their time in school. School grants is another area that Halton Learning Foundation supports. And each year, HLF provides opportunities for schools to receive grant money. This year, the areas include arts and music, media literacy, physical education, the environment, and thanks to a generous gift from RBC and an anonymous donor, funding specifically for mental health initiatives in our schools. HLF has $141,000 to give out this year. Schools have asked for $183,000. There's a gap, $42,000 to be precise. We have a committee of principals that take a look at the different grants. They'll be doing that later on this month and letting schools know how they were successful and what they'll be able to provide their funding for regarding their students. Some people may ask how we find funding for these particular grants. HLF is able to provide funding to schools through contributions by private individuals, such as support through the HDSB's payroll contribution campaign, and corporations such as CN, Ippolito Group, Smith's Funeral Homes, Nova Steel, Maple Lodge Farms, Chudley's, Gordon Foods, Canadian Welding Association, UA Local 67. These are just a few, but HLF is extraordinarily honored to have very strong relationships with some of the top companies, not just here in Halton, but all the way across Ontario. Our final area is our Eliminating Barriers program. Requests arrive in daily from principals asking to support students who are facing financial hardships and barriers to their education, some of which we have never experienced before in our lives. One young man was kicked out of his house this fall. He came out to his parents as being transgender, and he left without anything except the clothes on his back. No food, no technology, no anything. Thanks to his school and the Walmart gift cards that the principal asked for, he was able to go out and he was able to buy the things that he needed. He was able to buy the socks, the shoes. He was able to buy clothing and food so he'd be able to continue on. The student who told me this story last month, and this man is a friend of hers, she said that he couldn't believe that someone would think about him in such a kind and caring way at this point in his life. It was a very touching story, and this is just one example of support that we provide through our Eliminating Barriers program. No one wants to be left out of a field trip for the want of $25 or $50, but students go through this every day. Our Eliminating Barriers program helps as well to be able to provide support for field trips, attendance at youth conferences, and a variety of other initiatives, which are all part of the educational experience. These are all incredible learning opportunities, and just to be left behind because your parent or your guardian can't afford it is not an excuse. And it can be one of the most ostracizing experiences that a young person can have because they're left out. During this school year, HLF has provided over $92,000 from August the 25th until today in funding for Eliminating Barriers. Last year at this time, we provided $62,000. There's a gap of $30,000 difference from this year to last year. But I'm an optimist. You may have kind of figured that out at one point in time through meeting me in different ways and everything. I'm an optimist, and I know that we're going to be able to bridge this gap. We'll do it because there's a need to make it happen, and because we have to be successful in this. It doesn't matter what hat you're wearing here tonight. We are all community-minded individuals, and we all know it's not the fault of these young people that they're being left out. It's of no fault of their own. They need the help. And HLF, through the support of so many people, people in this room, people externally, who are making this happen. You may ask, how can I help? If I'm a trustee, if I'm a part of the HDSB school admin, if I'm someone in the audience who's listening, how in the world can I help the Halton Learning Foundation achieve its fundraising goal this year? Well, as a trustee, you know how important it is to connect people to the HLF mission. You're doing it right now, and your community connections are far more extensive than ours are. If you find someone who you think would be interested in hearing HLF's message, please let them know. We're always available to come out and talk about what we do and how we support students. We're always available to talk about our story. As a member of the HDSB senior admin team, you have the connection with all the schools. And you can share our message regarding payroll deduction, and that's happening next month. We're launching it in February to be able to start connecting up with all the different people who belong to the HDSB, or how they can get involved with Toonie Tuesday in their schools. For example, you'll see that our goal for Toonie Tuesday this year is $30,000. To date, we've received $800. There's a gap. And we have 103 schools here in the board. And if every school raised $291.27, that would support one young person with $250 in Walmart cards. We have to reach that number of 30,000 with Toonie Tuesday. And I know we have our two student directors here, and Dasha is on our board right now. And I know that your voices at the school level make all the difference. And it would be incredible to make sure that we can make that amount. So here are some ways that you can help. You can attend our golf tournament coming up on May 30th at Granite Ridge in Milton. You could consider making a monthly gift to the Halton Learning Foundation. You could consider honoring a retirement, a birthday, or another life event with a gift and a donation to the Halton Learning Foundation, or considering participating in the payroll deduction program that comes out next month. $10 per pay over 26 pay periods means an incredible difference to one student. The students need optimism. The students need hope. They deserve to be allowed to be fully engaged in their education. So be an optimist, along with me, along with our entire HLF team over in Portable number 3. Help us achieve our goal this year, and together we will indeed inspire every student to learn and to grow and succeed. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Leslie. And I believe every one of us does know the impact that Halton Learning Foundation does have on our system and how it helps support our students. Is there anybody who has any comments or questions for our presenter tonight? Trustee Gray.
Just wanted to share that recently, just before Christmas, I had the chance to be in one of the schools up in the hills. And the principal spoke to me to say that never before has she had so many requests for assistance with the families within her school, for help with food for the Christmas holidays, with help for some money or gift certificates to make some purchases. And that principal expressed to me just how happy that they had the support of a group like the HLF to back up some of those requests. What the principal made me aware of was that we're getting into tougher and tougher times in some of our communities with the price of food going up, the price of living, whereas it could be the electricity, heating, water, taxes, the cost of gas for cars. Whatever the case, the money's not stretching as far as it has in the past. And I think through the presentation that Leslie has made tonight, she's made it fairly clear to us that whereas the need grows, there is tending to be a little bit of a gap in our ability to meet some of the needs because the fundraising is not where we'd like it to be, or we're hopeful of much higher fundraising opportunities. So I'd just like to say thank you, Leslie. I'd like to also put in a word to my trustee colleagues and members of the senior admin, anything that you can do to help and any of the suggestions that you could adopt tonight that Leslie has given to us. Please do so, because we know that our communities need it, and it's all about student success and achievement. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Gray. I see no further speakers. I'd like to thank you for coming out tonight, Leslie, and giving us a highlight of what has been happening at Halt Learning Foundation. I know just before the holidays, you had organized a donation of winter coats and snowsuits that some of the trustees had helped sort, and I had the opportunity to take it to some of my schools and drop them off, and just the appreciation and the thanks for the students that were going to have a warm winter coat this winter. It just made your heart feel good inside. So thank you for it. Not everything's monetary, because that was a gift in kind, right? So
Yes, it was.
some of that is measured in a different way. So thank you very much for all that you and the board of the Halt Learning Foundation do, and thank you for coming out tonight.
Thank you very much, Trustee Amos. Trustee Gray, thank you.
Okay, so the next item is our ratification items. First is the minutes of the board meeting from December the 7th, 2016 on page 2 of your board package. Can I have a mover to accept the minutes? Trustee Reynolds, seconded by Trustee Pappen. Is there any discussion on the minutes from December the 7th? Seeing none. All those in favor? Thank you. That passes unanimously. So we're now up to business transacted in private session. Do we have any action items from private session?
We do have one, and it's a personnel matter, and I so move.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder for the private session personnel matter? Trustee Collard. Is there any discussion? Seeing none?
Hold on.
Just
Sorry.
do 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 do. That's okay. I'm a bad singer, so everybody can listen.
Try it now.
All those in favor? That passes unanimously. Thank you. Is there any other action items from business? Private
That's
session?
everything. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so we're now up to our order paper. Do we have any comments or questions on our order paper tonight? Seeing none, we'll move right along to The action item, motion to rescind M110213 and M110216. Trustee Collard, report 16184 on page 16 of your board package. Trustee Collard, would you like to speak to it?
We spoke about this in December, but just to refresh your memory, the director has come out with an admin procedure to deal with the timing of the reports. And that makes these two motions that have been on our books now for 6 years going on redundant because we no longer require them due to the creation of the admin procedure.
Thank you. So I'm going to read the motion. Be it resolved that the Halton District School Board rescind motions M110213 and M110216. Moved by Trustee Collard, seconded by Trustee Harvey Hope. Any further discussion? Vice Chair Graves.
So I'm to think back of our last board meeting last year, and I believe I had a comment or a question about, and now that it's in admin procedure, that's great, but this was originally a trustee motion, and we do not approve admin procedures. So if at any point admin procedure changes, just sort of the tracking of that. So it's my question, perhaps through you, Chair, to the directors. Is there a plan for that? Is there something that we can do? Yes. Okay. Do you want me to reiterate what the issue is? So it's in the admin procedure, so that it negates the need for this motion to stay on the order paper, which is good. However, an admin procedure can change without trustee approval. So at some point in the future, and it could be 10 years out, 15 years out, if the procedure changes. So I'm just wondering about a check and a balance in terms of
It's through you, Chair Amos, to Vice Chair Graves. You're exactly right. That's a good point. I mean, we hadn't thought very much about it because of the relationships we have that we bring admin procedures and so on, but that could change. So I know Trustee Harvey Hope's got a possible solution, but otherwise we'll go back and come back with a solution for that. Because I can't think of one off the top of my head, right?
Thank you. Trustee Harvey Hope.
I'll put my finance and accountability hat on here. We have on our to-do list in policy, bylaw and governance, getting rid of the thou shall nots and getting the director a list of thou shalls instead in updating that policy. And that would definitely be in that list that he or she, the director, shall bring and basically codify that admin procedure in the director's job piece. So that would be how you do it. Because right now it's you won't do this, you won't do this, you won't do that. There's no you shalls. And the whole idea was to turn it around to say you're going to do this, you're going to do that, including the bringing the admin procedures. And so all of those pieces that we're worried are going to fall off. We have just under 2 years to solidify all of what we've been doing anyway. And so that is part of the plan. But yes, you're very right in that the same reason why we aren't held accountable to anything in the admin procedure unless our trustee bylaws say we're going to hold ourselves to this level. Same thing, the admin procedures are in the operation field. So you have a valid point, but we have a plan to fix that in the meantime, and I think we're good on the gap for between now and next year.
Thank you.
Okay. And seeing no further speakers. All those in favor? It is warm. It's me. I didn't confirm. And that passes unanimously. Thank you. Okay, and now we're to another highlight of the evening. After our Inspire Awards, we're going to be inspired by our student trustee reports.
Thank you, Chair Amos. So I'm just going to start by giving you guys an update on how our last Student Senate meeting went. One of the highlights of it was that we just had regional breakouts that were led by our execs, whom were the regional reps. In these little breakouts, they discussed items and issues that were either relevant or that were important to their specific regions, and they're going to be looking at these outside of meeting minutes as well, and coming back to us throughout our different meetings and giving us an update on that. What we noticed was that when we had those regional breakouts, there weren't enough kids from the north that were coming in compared to previous meetings that we had, and we're not sure, maybe it was just that last meeting because it was kind of bad weather around that time. So we're just going to take a look at our next upcoming meeting and kind of make sure that we do have the representation from the north, because we do want to encompass the entire student populace of Halton. We also noticed that in the western, so this is to do with Burlington, we noticed that there was a lot of issues coming up about the PAR process and questions. So we had Stuart, who was going to come in and have a presentation, so we're hoping to have that either our upcoming meeting or the one after that, in order to answer any questions they have and kind of discuss that. Okay.
Through you, Chair Amos, to Trustee Haj Ali, Associate Director Bogue will be coming to your next Senate meet to do a presentation on PAR.
Awesome, thank you. Another thing we had was our communications team. They created an informal survey and they sent it out through our student senators to all the different schools in Halton, kind of asking feedback about what's going on in their schools. And we were really happy because we got close to 100 responses on that. So Dosh and I, as well as a couple of the execs, we're going to be sifting through that over the next couple weeks, and then kind of looking to see what the responses have entailed, and we'll give you guys an update on that as well. Our next Student Senate meeting is upcoming this upcoming Tuesday, January the 17th, and that's where we'll be continuing and finalizing different things that we mentioned.
So building off of that, we've been trying to use Student Senate as a way to reach out to students within the Halton community, beyond just filling out this informal survey. So personally, I've been in contact, this is through Osta ACO, with a chair of a panel for the federal government on youth unemployment. And Osta ACO is working with them to try and see if we can get more youth input into this specific policy issue right now. And they've created a survey with our help to distribute this survey to youth, specifically looking at unemployment. So we've distributed that to our student senators, and we plan to do that some more in order to see if they can get more students to respond to the survey, just because that would be very valuable feedback to have for the government making those decisions. As well, with the Senate, we've started planning our Halton Youth Leadership Symposium, so that happens every year. We're in contact with Sheridan. Currently, we want to host it there again, same as last year. We're looking for a date near the beginning of April currently, and we're brainstorming workshop ideas with our senators. We're planning to have it be only for elementary students this year due to declining attendance among secondary students in the past few years. So elementary students have a lot of ideas for what they'd like to see, specifically looking at workshops for transitioning into high school. So there's a lot of opportunity for feedback there and getting interest of our senators. Beyond things for Senate, there are a couple of other things we've done. So next week we'll be meeting with Gail and Director Miller to look at the student trustee election policy. So we hope to revise that. That would be great. And the final thing is we just want to thank Gail for sending us over the MSAC application, so the Minister's Student Advisory Council application. We've passed that on to our student senators. A few of them have asked me questions about it, so I think there will be a lot of interest. I hope that a lot of them will apply. It's a great opportunity for them to be involved on a provincial level to consult the Ministry of Education.
Wow. Did you get a holiday? Are there any comments or questions for our student trustees tonight? Trustee Harvey Hope.
Just a heads up to coordinate with whoever's doing the other April conference that you don't pick the same date. Right, we were talking about it earlier today. The Safe School, like, anyway, just there's another conference, full day conferences out there that's going to take some people that would be this, could possibly be some of the same people. So just to watch that when you're both booking conferences. The medal. No, break. It's got a new name. Wellness.
We don't have a date yet, but it would probably be early April. Do you know what date that is?
Superintendent Newton?
They don't have a date or. a
Oh,
venue yet.
okay.
Thank you so much for bringing it to our attention. We'll definitely look into it as we're booking.
Superintendent Newton?
And through the chair, just another conference that's in the planning right now is the Our Kids Network organizes an asset building conference every year for youth and office workers, health professionals, teachers, staff for April 6th. So just if you're looking for a date, not that that necessarily would conflict, and it's a small conference, but it might attract some folks, similar people as well. So, okay, thank you.
Are all these dates on the system calendar?
Not fixed.
Oh, okay. Okay. So maybe if you get some tentative dates, float them maybe through the director and Gail first so they can check to make sure there's no conflicts? I was being polite.
We'll definitely do that, yeah. Make sure everything runs smoothly.
you're right.
Trustee Pappen?
Thank you, through the chair, to our student trustees. I just wondered, in the past, we've had video conferencing for the North, and I guess I'm directing this also at Superintendent Truffin, if that's something we could do for the trustees in the North area.
I did get in contact with a couple schools in the north to see if they were interested in having the video conferencing system set up. None of them got back to me after a couple, so. And then we did have pretty good attendance previous to last meetings for the northern schools. So I think it was just maybe maybe it was just a day, a meeting off, or it was this specific day was bad weather. So we'll take a look, see at our upcoming meetings, and we'll take steps to kind of avoid having that kind of absence for the northern schools.
Thank you. Go ahead.
This might be the time when you would want to have it because, moving through the winter, we're more likely to get people not wanting to come down south because of the weather. So if we could look into that, that would be great.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Superintendent Truffin, did you hear that?
Well, it offers you an opportunity to see if they'd be willing to participate if they can't come down, right?
Yeah, we certainly have the technology to do that. Our Wi-Fi is very, very powerful, and we certainly have Hangouts. We have devices, the HD cameras. I will work with you in any way we can. But we have tried in the past, and it's it's there, but they don't really participate. They don't feel it's the same for whatever reason. But if you want video, we can do video. It's not using this. It's something else.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And seeing no further questions or comments, thank you very much for your report, and hopefully you have a full house next week. Okay, so our next item is information items. Do we have any notices of motion tonight? Okay, I'll mention that. Okay, seeing no notices of motion, we will now move to our action items from January 25th, 2017. And just for your information, the multi-year plan initiatives actually are not an action item, so they should go to the very first item under information items on the agenda. Well, you can when we get to the next item. Is that what you're talking about? Okay, so we're now up to our striking committee report. Report 17006 on page 18 of your board package. And we do need to waive the rules tonight, so Trustee Harvey Hope.
Seeing as how I attended the meeting based on the new striking committee today, yeah, I'd like to make it official.
You'd like to make a motion to waive the rules?
I'd like to make a motion to waive the rules. Thank you.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder of waiving the rules to deal with the striking committee report tonight? Trustee L. Harrison. Is there any discussion on waiving the rules for the striking committee report? Seeing none. All those in favor of waiving the rules to deal with this tonight? And that passes unanimously. Thank you very much. So I'd like to address a couple things on the report. There's some inconsistencies in the titling of some of the committees, and some of the committee names got changed when it went to admin council when they were reviewing the actual committee names. So the IT committee is now called the Innovation, Ingenuity, and IT Partnership. I want to check with Associate Director Bogue, but is it the French Advisory Committee? Okay, so that will be the name that is for consistency. And I think those were the only two that weren't consistent through the naming process. So I will read the motion. Be it resolved that the Halton District School Board approve the trustee committee appointments as outlined in report 17006. Moved by, you want to move it? Vice Chair Graves, seconded by Trustee Oliver. Is there any discussion on the striking committee report? Trustee Collard.
Yes, I just wanted to point out that although the report outlines that the chair is an ex officio of the PIC committee, the chair is actually an ex officio member of all board committees, not just the one. And I think it's important to ensure that people are aware that the board has that role on all board committees.
Thank you. Trustee Harvey Hope.
Thank you. I just wanted to clarify that the committee list trustee membership on page, I don't know, I guess it's 19, has some names beside audit and SEAC, but we're actually approving in effect, the Excel spreadsheet, which has a change to the audit committee membership, right? So I just wanted, it doesn't? It got changed back?
The hard copy, there was a message that went out right after the report went out. The hard copies are incorrect. The electronic copies were correct, and it is Vice Chair Graves who is on the audit committee.
Perhaps, yeah, okay, this is fine, but I'm just saying, perhaps for yes, we get an email saying, by the way, your paper copy's wrong, but perhaps somebody could maybe in those circumstances stick it in the mailbox or something, because that email is like 300 ago, so I didn't notice when I actually went to open my package, that would have been 12 days or something. Anyway, I didn't recall that, so that's part of the heads up on that, and maybe, or either that or announce it somewhere in the.
Okay, thank you. Trustee L. Harrison.
Okay, thank you very much. Through you, Madam Chair, my question is with respect to the description of the Communications Committee, and I'm thinking perhaps Trustee Collard may be able to shed some light on this. Did we not change that, the description of what that committee does in our last go-around at PB&G? And how official did that new piece become? Would you refresh my memory?
Yes, it was changed in the bylaws, so that is official.
So it was something that wasn't picked up when we were doing the committee list. So we can make a note that it is to refer to the bylaw for the actual, the actual trustee-led committee descriptions.
Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Gerbentz.
Thank you, Chair Amos. I'm just looking at the standing committee spreadsheet, and of course the top portion is not filled in. So when
that will be at the beginning of our next committee of the whole meeting, we will have elections for all of those positions.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Through the chair to, I guess, to Trustee Collard. I believe at our last meeting that we spoke about changing or including Inspire Committee as well. And I don't know whether we ratified that at Committee of Whole, or that would be, sorry, Trustee Graves. No idea.
Not yet. I think that's on the to-do list, but we haven't got to that part of the bylaws yet. That will go to PB&G.
So officially, it sits as a subcommittee to communications.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
So, is there any other comments or questions on the striking committee report? Seeing none, all those in favor?
So when you update the Communications Standing Committee, could you add a second subcommittee, the communication? Okay.
And that passes unanimously. Thank you very much. We're now on to our information items for tonight. The first item is our multi-year planning initiatives. Associate Director Bogue, report 17002 on page 17 of your board package. Welcome, Associate Director Bogue. When you're ready.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you to trustees, this report is about a couple of budget pieces connected to our new multi-year plan. One is specific to the stakeholder engagement tool, and if trustees recall that we, when the multi-year plan was developed, there were a number of targets that we don't currently have satisfactory ways to measure progress in, and so this was part of that thinking, is to with these priority areas that we would need to develop some tools, and had initially intended to do them in-house, but now after further reflection, we thought this might be a more appropriate way to go, to contract an outside provider. The other area in the multi-year plan, which is a big focus for us, is around communication. And so again, looking at the existing resources within the board, we felt that we needed some additional funds to support that area, and Superintendent Eatough can certainly speak to those. The multi-year plan, if you recall, in the last year's budget had approximately $2 million allocated towards it, and I think we'd spent up in and around 1.4 million right now, so this would be an additional sum which was allocated in last year's budget. So I'm happy to answer any questions, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Trustee Gerbens, you have to put yourself back on. I believe there are some comments and questions. Trustee Harvey Hope.
Sorry, I didn't mean to jump ahead of you, Trustee Crabank. I'm just pushing buttons. So just to clarify that there was a $2 million in the budget, and this is just information that these two 50,000s are going to go into that spot on the spreadsheet where we didn't have a number. So it's not a request for additional money. It's just an information item telling us how they're going to spend a little bit more of the $2 million that we did approve, which then explains why it's an information item, just for clarity.
Thank you. Trustee Gerbens.
Through you, Chair Amos, do we have an idea of what this stakeholder engagement tool may actually look like?
Through you, Madam Chair, to Trustee Gerbens, that's a great question. We are just in the process now of drafting an RFP. We're going to have to go out to the marketplace, and so we'll be looking for companies to kind of help us with that. It might be as simple as a survey that's been branded and so on and vetted in terms of the questions, or it could be something like an interactive website that may be open at all times for public feedback. We're really looking for folks to come to the table to kind of help us develop what exactly this is. I mean, there's so many ways now to get voice from community and staff through handheld devices and all those things. So that's why we really thought we had to go outside. We originally were going to develop this in-house, which would have been a fairly simple, straightforward survey, which might be where we land. We're not sure, but we want to see what people will come to the table with.
Thank you. Are there any other comments or questions for the Associate Director tonight? You have another one? Oh, go ahead.
Okay.
Can you put yourself back on the list so I can? Thank you.
Okay. So in the report, it mentions significant board documents, and I'm wondering if you could provide me an example of that. And it also talks about positioning statements. And do we already have a positioning statement? It kind of talks like we have one, but I'm not sure where to find it.
I'm going to defer this one to Superintendent Etoff.
Thank you. Several pieces in that report actually reference recommendations that came back as a result of our communications audit back a couple of years ago. So at that time, it was a recommendation that we do a much better job in terms of marketing ourselves and ensuring that our positioning statement and all of our documents were branded accordingly. That's been one of those pieces that we've kind of held off to the side as we knew a new multi-year plan was coming into place. So having had some internal discussions with our communications department, as well as through outreach and networking with other boards, we decided this would be an opportune time to address that particular area of the communications audit, and hence why we're looking at going out with an RFP for some additional support and looking for expertise beyond our own.
Thank you. Did you have another follow-up? Just want to make sure before I clear you this time. Any other comments or questions for the Associate Director? Seeing none, well, thank you very much for your report. We appreciate the information. So our next item is Trustee Honoraria, Schedule 1, Superintendent. Oh, sorry. Oh, yeah, because I had a new number 1. I'm sorry, I skipped the revised estimates. Okay, revised estimates, Superintendent Bierman, report 17001 on page 26 of your board package. Welcome, Superintendent.
Thank you.
Bierman.
Through the chair, the information is a summary that is presented typically at this time of year, the revised estimates that are filed with the ministry. The information that is included as part of the revised estimates is really an update to the budget that was approved in June. It provides information with respect to actual October 31st enrollment. As you know, the grants are based on the 2 count dates, October and March. So we have been able to confirm our October enrollment. It also includes any additional information that has come to light since the budget was approved. So included, again, on page 25 is a summary of our increase in enrollment. We have seen a significant shift in elementary, mainly in Oakville and Milton, not a surprise, and it continues to grow. A small reduction in secondary, however, overall, we're still looking at an increase of approximately 300 students from the initial information that was included in the budget. That certainly does have an impact with respect to staffing and meeting class size compliance, mainly at the elementary level. Also included with respect to increase in enrollment in our ELL programs, or English language learners. We have had a significant increase in those learners, which does generate additional funding from the ministry, which then has translated into additional support for our students. Also included in the staffing is additional 9 educational assistants effective January 2017, and that would come from the $500,000 contingency that the trustees had set aside as part of the 2016-17 budget, not knowing at the time what specific needs could and would arise. In terms of the actual impact on the bottom line, if you turn to Appendix 1, which is page 27, the following page, we've divided out the information between projected revenues and projected expenditures. Again, under revenues, a significant increase in our grants as a result of our increase in our enrollment. and also, as I mentioned, additional grants as a result of increase in the English language learner enrollment. There's two items included in the summary with respect to benefit trusts. So as you're aware, the province and the boards are shifting to provincial trusts. There is still quite a bit of work that is ongoing with respect to the implementation. We have several groups that have already transitioned. The ministry has indicated that they have provided, or they will be providing and have provided funding with respect to some of that transition. At this point in time, from our board's perspective, we're in a bit of a surplus position with respect to the benefit trusts of about $1.1 million. So we were provided with a specific direction when the budget was set as to what we should be including in our budget. It was based on a 2014-15 actual utilization plus 4%, plus 4%. So those are the amounts that, again, based on the direction we did set in the budget. At this point in time, the ministry has funded about $3.6 million versus the $2.5 that was additional that was set in the budget. So at this point in time, we are again in a surplus position with respect to that. Not all of the groups have transitioned and not all of this information has been finalized. So that's certainly an area that we'll keep our eye on to determine if there are changes to that. But at this point, it seems to be positive, and we're hoping that that will continue with the finalization of the implementation of the trusts. Other than that, not a lot of movement in the expenditures. So overall, a projected net surplus of just over $3 million, and that is not including the $3.5 million that was approved as the budget to be transferred from accumulated surplus. So if, as we continue to the end of the year, we find that this projected surplus does not move, then at this point we just recommend not transferring from accumulated surplus. But additional information will come forward as part of the budget. And there are accompanying schedules to the report based on information that is provided to the ministry. And I'd be pleased to answer any questions.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your report. Any comments or questions for Superintendent Bierman? Trustee Harvey Hope.
Did it again, sorry. Fast off the button today. Thank you. Through you to Superintendent Bierman. A related question about estimates and budgets. Is it possible, and it's for further discussion, but just a thought that lots of things are changing and we've got a significant growth in certain areas that are causing a lot of new students coming in, et cetera. And I'm wondering whether at some point a summary of, since we approved the budget, these are all the things we've done, because we seem to do a, for good reasons, oh, here we need to add this, we need to add that, we need to add that, wondering whether or not we could, yes, these have revised estimate changes, but at some point, say the mid-year point, so sometime after February 28th, if we could say, by the way, this is halfway through the year, and these are the things we've done, and this is what we expect, because there's going to be some situations where right now at the back of our minds, we now have this, okay, based on revised estimates, this is where we're going to be. But if we turn around and have 75 children arrive in a particular school area, and we end up having to, without having additional funding because of the times and the cutoffs and all those other things, we could soak up a certain amount of that by an emergency portable and 5 more teachers and some more EL. So I'm thinking that perhaps, not asking for quarterly, but maybe a mid-year check-in sometime mid-March or something.
Thank you. Through the chair, certainly as part of the work that's ongoing in the business services, specifically in the budget department, even though the estimates are filed based on October 31st information, we continue to monitor all of our expenditures and revenue on an ongoing basis, and March is another critical date that of which the budget and the revised estimates are based on. So as we begin our budget discussions for 17-18, as part of that, we do provide, or in the past we have provided during budget discussions, updates to the projected surplus, and we will continue with that. So any other items that have come to light that would impact what is presented tonight is presented or has been presented as part of budget discussion, so that, as you say, we have a better understanding of what subsequent events may impact this calculation.
So I'm thinking slightly more formal than that, but I mean, again, it could be a further discussion, but again, I'm not, and it's only because I've seen other situations where they get quarterly statements, and I'm not asking for quarterly statements, I'm asking for just sort of a one place, a report, information report that kind of does a summary, sort of not in the budget workshop arena, but actually a board report, so that it might be more, again, just because I think we're getting a little more hiccupy as far as number of students and how we're spending money and those kinds of things. And we've had a few extra surprises in the last couple of years as far as waiting until June or May when the budget book comes out with what we think. So anyway, just a thought process. I do know we've been getting the information, but it isn't necessarily where we can put your finger on it and say, yes, that's where it is. It sort of comes in pieces in the budget.
Thank you. Trustee Collard.
Thank you. Could you just remind me of how much would be in the accumulated surplus if we don't need the transfer? Off the top of your head, I'm not asking for dollars and cents, just an approximate.
So through the chair, there are the various pieces of the accumulated surplus. There's the unrestricted, the internal restricted, and then unavailable for compliance. I believe we were at about $10 million. We left it at 5, I'm sorry. Yes, so there was a motion that was approved in November, so we are currently at 5. However, if this amount does not have to be transferred, that could go to increase that amount.
Just wanted to make sure it would bump it up. Okay.
Thank you. Trustee Gerbentz.
I just have a question for clarification, more for the public than anything. So on Appendix 1, on, I don't know what page that is, 27, it just says, it says other income, and I just, for the public, what does that mean?
Through the chair, as part of our revenues, other income includes or can include fees from international students, for visa students. There's some interest income, some rental income. So there's various pieces, and this is just the projected change of what that initial projection was.
Thank you.
Thank you. And seeing no further comments or questions at this time, thank you very much for your report. But don't leave. Is your next up with the Trustee Honoraria Schedule 1, Superintendent Bierman, Report 17000 on page 33 of your board package.
Thank you. Through the chair, as part of the trustee honoraria policy, there is a component of the honoraria that is that changes with respect to enrollment. And it's very specific with respect to the Education Act as to how that is calculated. So the information on Appendix A is based on, again, the requirements of the Education Act. And effective December 1st, 2016, there is a slight increase because our enrollment has increased. And I'd be pleased to answer any questions.
Well, thank you very much. I guess that's good news. Is there any comments or questions for Superintendent Bierman on the trustee honoraria? Seeing none, thank you very much for your report tonight. All right, our next item is the board report update. Superintendent Miller, or sorry, I demoted you, Director Miller. Report 17005 on page 35 of your board package. Director Miller.
Thanks, Chair Amos, and that's okay. I don't mind the demotion. Anyway, there's a few changes. Supervision of student safety risk, it's February 15th. There, we're going to bring it on March 1st, the first board meeting in March. Superintendent Zonneveld will be bringing that report. Also on March 1st, Superintendent Blackwell will be bringing an early development indicators update. Unfortunately, she's not here to talk about it at all tonight. And we very much expect, unless there's a delay, that we will be bringing the Burlington PAR report May 17th. But believe that I think it might be coming for vote on May 17th. I'll have to check that for you. I think it's a vote May 17th, so that means May 1st or 3rd. May 3rd it will come for the first time. So that's the anticipated date. That, of course, given the complexity of this issue, that may change. So.
Are there any comments or questions for the director on the board report update? Trustee Gibbons.
Thank you, Chair Amos. I'm sorry, I seem to be speaking a lot this evening. Just looking at this report, May 17th has a ton of stuff listed on it. Are we going to be able to do that? Go home? Are we getting caught?
Excellent question. Through you, Chair Amos, to Trustee Grabentz. And not only is there a ton of stuff on there, there's quite a lot of dialogue with many of them. We will, on Monday, we'll put this on the agenda for Admin Council and see what we can kind of edit, adapt, or whatever. It's an excellent point.
Well, just know your May's going to be really busy.
Well, I suspect the Burlington PAR will consume a great deal of time. So, yeah, we'll take it back to Admin Council, take a look at it, and see if how we can kind of sort this out in a more coherent way. Thank you for pointing that out.
Thank you. Are there any other comments or questions tonight on the board reports? Seeing none, we'll move on to our next item, which is the admin procedure update. Director Miller, report 17004 on page 38 of your board package. Director Miller.
Thank you, Chair Amos. And I may turn to Executive Officer McFadden around of HR. Executive Officer of HR McFadden to this, but I'll just start. Recruitment accommodation, that's a new one. And it's required, and we should be doing it. It's to accommodate people who are applying for jobs, and in terms of recruitment, that we make sure that we accommodate them if they're in an interview process and so on. And the second one is the Attendant Management and Support Program. We've revised this to include specialist and midwife appointments, testing, et cetera, which previously wasn't in there. So I don't, Deborah, you want to say anything?
No, I think that covers it. We were doing, of course, accommodations all along, but this just codifies our practices, and we'll be doing some training for our administrators who do interviews out in the field on this AP as well.
Thank you. Comments or questions? Trustee L. Harrison.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair, my question is with respect to the recruitment, accommodation, admin procedure. Under intended purpose, it says that this is about diverse cultures and ability to contribute fully. And I think I may be misunderstanding the meaning of culture in this context. To me, that means various diverse backgrounds and so on. And is that what this is about, or is it about diverse ability?
It can be about both. If an applicant identifies that they require an accommodation for cultural reasons, we also accommodate for that. I could give you an example of that if I thought about it. And it could be around alerting us to the fact that they will not be coming in and shaking hands with the interview committee, because there are certain cultures in which that isn't done, or I can't think of anything off the top of my head, but it's all around what the applicant might identify as a need through the recruitment process. And we would do our best to accommodate any legitimate cultural, physical,
or emotional accommodation that is required.
Thank you. Are there any other comments or questions? Seeing none? Thank you very much for your report. So we're now up to committee reports. Are there any committee reports tonight? Trustee Collard.
Yes, the Equity Committee met the day after our last board meeting, and so it was my last visit as a member of the Equity Committee, as well as Trustee Daniele's last. It was a very good meeting. We discussed faith accommodations, and it was very well attended. There was a lot of good, rich discussion, and I just wanted to say to those trustees who are new to the Equity Committee, you're going to enjoy being on this committee immensely, and I'm going to miss it immensely. And I know that I speak for Trustee Daniele as well, and I wish you all the best with your work on the committee.
Thank you. Trustee Pappen.
Thank you. Through the chair, the next accessibility coordinating meeting is on Thursday, January the 12th, tomorrow at 9 a.m. in the trustee boardroom. And we will be focusing on the creation of the new multi-year plan for accessibility, and we'll also be talking about the process and content collectively, and then working with other departments and groups to complete a draft of the multi-year plan for review at our March meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Reynolds.
Thank you. Just a reminder to all trustees that this next Spec Ed Advisory Committee will be meeting next Tuesday, and it takes place in Milton. That is our Milton Staff Learning Center at 7 o'clock. It's, I think, advertised on our calendar as last night, but just as a secondary reminder. Thanks.
Thank you. Vice Chair Graves.
Thank you. Our next committee of the whole is next Wednesday. We will have a presentation on the safe use of technology. We'll be having our committee chair and vice chair elections. And I know the director is, in his report, going to make a request for something else to come that evening. With that probably takes up our whole evening. So we might not need to meet to plan that one. But if there's anything urgent that any of the chairs or vice chairs of the committee feel needs to be considered for that evening, please send me an email. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Oliver.
Thank you. Through you, Chair. The Mental Health Steering Committee met this morning, and Trustee Harvey Hope and I attended that meeting. There's a lot of excellent work taking place in the area of mental health and well-being, with a particular focus on mental health in the classroom. So establishing mentally well-being classroom settings. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Daniele.
Thank you. Just a reminder for anyone who's not attending the ZIAC meeting next week, on the same night is the public consultation for the Milton Boundary Review. It is at Craig Kielburger at 7 o'clock, and it's going to be a barnstormer. You should stop by.
Thank you. A barnstormer.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be the best party.
Awesome.
Gord is promised.
What is Gord going to do to make it the best party in town? Under committee reports, I'd like to, we'll send you out an email, but the Fix the Finances Committee, we're going to be having a meeting next Wednesday from 4 to 5 here. I just have to book a room, and we will try and work on next steps of what we want to look at and address. So we're now up to the director's report. Director Miller.
Thank you, Chair Amos. I have a few items tonight. Vice Chair Graves has alluded to one, but I'm going to wait. That's going to come out during trustees' questions, questions from the trustees and comments. The first one I have is around the kindergarten report card. If you'll recall in the director's report, Prior to Christmas, I had mentioned that there's a new kindergarten report card that was scheduled to begin in January, and reporting on those students in January reporting. And all boards were working on it, and it had not been absolutely mandated that all boards would do it for January, but the common belief was that all boards would be doing the report card in January. Just prior to Christmas, the Ministry of Ed announced that it would be voluntary, or each board to make their own decision around the kindergarten report. And thanks to the good work of Superintendent Podrebaric and Executive Officer McFadden, we've decided that we are going ahead with the kindergarten report, the new one. So I'm just going to turn it over to Superintendent Podrebaric to talk a little bit about that so you're aware of what it is.
Thanks, Director Miller. I think there's a lot of anxiety from provincial EDFO around just the newness of the report card, and so there's a lot of pressure applied at a provincial level. Though sarcasm isn't one of our values of the Halton District School Board, we always really appreciate when they give huge announcements right before Christmas. But thanks for indulging me that. But it's so it did throw us. It did throw us for a bit of a loop, because it was actually an expectation. It was to be mandatory, and all of our preparations up to this point were to ready our teachers. So we really felt they were ready. Our neighboring boards are also proceeding. Halton Catholic is doing the new report card, as is Peel. Toronto District School Board is not, so there's a little bit of division out there. We were also really felt that to retreat to our old reporting would be a real step backwards. It would mean JK families receive nothing in January or in February. And our SK families would just get goal-setting reports that wouldn't be followed up on in June. So it would be a real disconnect for families. And so our local context really really motivated us to stay on this path. All of our PD and professional development, we felt our teachers are ready. There's some that are feeling anxious about it, but that's a product of the newness. And we know they'll get more comfortable with the work by digging in it and doing it. And we've provided full-day PD in services, after-school in services. We've given samples, exemplars of what comments look like. So we really feel we're in a good position, and our families will. I think they'll benefit from the new report card. It is a province-wide report, so every board is now giving the same kindergarten report card. Before, it was every board, we devised our own. They were all locally developed. So this is, I think, is a real step in the direction. This report card aligns with the new curriculum on the 4 frames. You report on the 4 frames in the new document. The old report card, again, was goal setting based on the old document that's no longer in play. So for all of those reasons, we're happy to stay the course, and we're going to be supporting our teachers right now. Even this Thursday is another voluntary session to support them in completing the report.
And I would just add that both Superintendent Podrebaric and Executive Officer McFadden did have conversations with our local EDFO executive around this. We didn't just go without speaking with them. So next part of the report is this is good for new teachers. It might seem like a small sum, but it's an important symbolic step, and I want to thank HR for this. You used to, when you applied to the Halton Board, you went through Apply to Educate. Am I right? Or non-teachers? You explain it.
Sorry. Thank you, Director Miller, for that kind introduction. As part of the multi-year plan through equity, it was one of our goals was to eliminate the application fee that Apply to Education charged for external applicants to the board for non-teaching positions. So as of January 1st, we were able to do that, and now people applying to our board do not have to pay a fee. So.
Thank you. And an immunization message from Public Health. Superintendent Pennyfather.
Thank you, Director Miller, through Chair Amos. There's two steps going on this year. First of all, high school, the focus is on the 1999-2000 birth year cohort. There's school clinics. It's set up much the way it was last year. There's school clinics December 2016 to February 2017. Before each school clinic, a robocall goes home 1 week before. Each high school will have a clinic managed by a public health nurse, and the principals will have a communication toolkit. February 16th, the orders will be mailed out. And this year they have 1,565 students with incomplete medical records, immunization records. You'll note that that's, I think the community is starting to get the hang of this because that's way down from last year. They started up around 4,000 last year at the get-go. So, and they had it down to, when they finished, down to just a few people. So, and some were out of the country. I think there was 5 left at the end. Some were out of the country and some weren't attending school at that time. So public health did an outstanding job last year with the high schools. There's a plan for elementary, which will start next fall. So this plan is more, the dates need to be tightened up yet, but this is the tentative plan. The focus is on the 2009-10 birth year, so that would be grade 2-3 next fall. And they're giving lots and lots of notice. March 13th, notices mailed for HDSB. The Catholic board will also have a mail out in March. And then they're giving a second notice May 29th. And then October 26th, now remember this is tentative date, but October 26th, suspension orders mailed. And the suspension period would be November 9th to December 6th. One thing that they're working out is the clinics, because they can't put one in every school because we have so many elementary schools. So they're going to do a lot of regional clinics to support parents to get their immunization records up to date and get kids immunized.
And thanks, Superintendent Pennyfather. The last thing I have to, next Tuesday, and many of you have talked about that, SEAC is in Milton. There's the Milton Public Meeting and Review. There's Student Senate next Tuesday, that's here. We also have a Pathways. Superintendent Newton, do you want to briefly mention that? Pathways, so next Tuesday is pretty busy. I think it's difficult because trustees would like to go to more than one of these. I'm planning on attending 3 of them. I can't get to all 4, but if you want to talk a little bit about Pathways.
Sure. So. The Pathway evenings are designed for primarily elementary, grade 7 to grade 11, 12 parents and their children or students or youth. And the idea is to look at different pathways other than university and college. So to look at apprenticeships, different program areas that you might be interested in, high skill majors. And so they're touring between three different areas of Halton, and the IPLs will be coming out to describe how you apply to different programs beyond the normal box of the core subject areas and what schools are hosting what particular pathways that you might be interested in. So it's, I do know that an e-blast has gone out to all families to invite them, and as well a lot of newsletters through their websites have been promoting that evening as well. So it's really well attended, a lot of information, and if anything, it just starts to trigger some of the thinking beyond the regular university college pathway.
So there's 2 other opportunities for trustees to attend, and I wonder if Superintendent Newton, you can send those out, or sure. Superintendent Hunt-Gibbons, whoever. Sure. Milton's going to be a busy place next Tuesday because 3 of those meetings are in Milton. So don't be speeding. And that's it for the director's report.
Thank you. Are there any comments or questions for the director on any of his topics tonight? Seeing none, we're on communications from the chair. I'd like to make a request to the director that our striking committee report has passed. Could you please share with all the people who are responsible for all the committees the new members if there's been a change, so that the trustees who are on those committees will be notified of when the meetings would be?
Yes, we will.
Thank you. So to the trustees, if it's a committee that you weren't previously on and you don't know the meetings and you don't hear, follow up. I also like to mention that the OPSPA PEZ is next week. Is that right? And there's still time to register. I understand that getting accommodation may be very difficult, but there's still.
Where is it? Hilton?
It's in Toronto.
No, but Hilton or Sheriff? Sheriff.
And I believe that's all I have at the moment. So we're now up to trustee questions and comments. Trustee Collard.
Thank you. I was wondering if I could ask the director to share with trustees all of the information that has been shared with the park for Burlington High Schools, as well as any future data information that comes to that committee.
Sure. Through you, Chair Amos, to Trustee Collard and all trustees, and I'll look to Superintendent Podrebaric to jump in here if I've missed anything. Currently, the park has had all the school information profiles, which are quite extensive. There's a fair bit of information and data in there. They've made some requests for other information around funding, how it's funding, and we're working on that to provide that for them. We're also currently working on some costs of perhaps, for example, the status quo, what it's costing to have these schools open from a staffing, operational, and all those other things. They haven't been provided to the park yet. Some of those are being worked on. And I think that's about all that's being provided at this point, but we will provide anything that's essentially requested, and we'll certainly also provide those to trustees as well.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Trustee Gebenz.
Thank you, Chair Amos. I actually have a couple of comments. I'll do the one now and I'll go back on the list. So since Trustee Collard brought up the PAR, I've experienced through my email and talking to various people that the December 8th public meeting for the Program and Accommodation Review that was down at the New Street Education Center, that people didn't perhaps feel that that they've had an opportunity to voice their concerns and have their questions perhaps answered. And I was just wondering if we are going to provide an opportunity to have sort of direct questions and answers. I know that we did the online version. I know that we've had information nights. Those tended to be one-way kind of information. But there is seems to be a feeling out there that I'm feeling, and I don't know if I should be speaking for all the trustees. I'm sure that they're receiving some of the emails that I have received, saying that they feel that people aren't being able to express themselves with regards to actually asking and receiving answers.
Go ahead.
Through you, Chair Amos, to Trustee Gebenz and any other trustees. First, I'll review a little bit about what I've said at previous times and what was said in the informal meetings around the process, and that we actually did in the informal meetings. You're absolutely correct. The informal meetings were one way. They were intended to be one way to provide people with information so that they could come back. At those meetings, I did talk about that we would be going to the students and surveying students, which we have done. And we have another student event coming up in February. I did say that we would be going to the staffs of the schools with surveys, which we are in the process of doing. And I also said that we would be going to the public with further consultations. We have met with Ipsos Reid, and they're helping us develop a consultation document process that would go out in very short order to the entire community that they will receive, and they will have their opportunity to voice a lot of those concerns, questions, etc. They do have the opportunity to go question and answers on the website, and it is there's a lot of traffic on the website, We did do the Q&A online, and I intend on doing another Q&A later on in the process. There will be at least 2 more public meetings around the park itself. I think one at the end of February and one at the very beginning of March. In addition, people have sent me emails. I've responded. I've responded to phone calls. I've met with various people. I've also been to Burlington City Council, in which they asked many questions. On this coming Wednesday, I'm going to, forgive me for not knowing the exact name of the organization, but I think it's the Burlington Business Association, and I'm meeting with them on Wednesday morning to do a presentation of the PAR, and I'm sure they'll ask some questions. But what has been missing, and I acknowledge this, is a big theater with an open mic. We've been skeptical on how that supports the process, how that provides more opportunity than what we're doing for people to ask those questions. Those often become I'm not going to comment very much on December 8th, but in part December 8th was venting, and people saw how that can sometimes go. I'm not saying it was perfect or by any stretch of the imagination, and I understand the concerns that were brought to us, and we've brought those concerns as well, and hopefully we'll have better public meetings in the past. But we can go back and take, or in the future, I should say, not in the past. We'll go, notwithstanding your comments, we'll take another look at it, and if the people of Burlington are demanding, or in certain areas demanding, that we have these open mic sessions, I'm not frightened of them. I'm not worried about standing up in front of a crowd and hearing their questions or hearing them voice their concerns. I'm not sure if I'm not sure how it adds much more to all the other things that we're doing. They also have a park and school councils in which the parks and the people on those parks are vehicles to get those questions to the park. In addition, once it comes to the board, it will be a committee of the whole. There'll be public delegation evenings. And so there's many, many opportunities. So I have offered to meet with others, and they have not come to me. So.
The park committee members, I get a little concerned about them. I'm hoping that people are treating them with respect, and I mean, you know, the general public, that they're not experiencing the abuse. Yes, you know, because some of the comments that have come even just to my email box, some of them I would almost put into that category, and I can imagine upset parents and other members of the community may also be sending items like that to the park members, and I was just wondering, what kind of supports do we provide to them with regards to dealing with that, and perhaps some mental health help? Through
your chair, Amos, to Trustee Grebenc, and Superintendent Podberg can weigh in on this because he's working most closely with the park. First of all, I have not heard of any abuse directed towards the park members, which is, I haven't heard of any kind of insulting behavior or any of those things. And I would say I have great admiration for those people that have stepped up to be in the park. It's a highly emotional issue. And, I've said it before, I'll say it here again. If it wasn't an emotional issue or it didn't elicit some kind of response from the community, I think that would be a very sad statement about how our schools have been running in those communities. It would, apathy would be a really poor indicator of how good those schools have been, and we're clearly not getting apathy. And in some respects, I'm pleased about that. I'm not some respects entirely pleased about that. I don't know if we have any specific supports for the park other than Stott has talked to them about advice. I did address them at the beginning and thank them for their commitment and thank them and for their, quite frankly, their bravery. It takes a lot, and it's beside all the emotional stuff, it's a huge work commitment, and these people are successful, busy people, and now they've committed to try to make a difference for the students in Burlington. So, but I'll turn it over to Stott to see the kinds of things he's talked about with the park itself.
We addressed this directly in our orientation meeting that we had, at the outset, and the direction we provided them was if and at this point we don't have a sense that that's happening yet, or certainly nobody's presented that it has. We said, please, as role of chair, I said, please let me know, and if you're finding that, we'll give guidance in terms of how to script a response or not responding, and can follow up as well. And also just in terms of, clarifying the role of the park with people as well, that these are parents in your community. And I think people largely have a sense of that, but we wanted to let them, eyes wide open that this is a hot issue. They might be faced with that. So there is they come into it with realistic notions, but, we also want to deal with these really specifically. So we said, let me know and we'll deal with them case by case. At this point, we haven't had to do that, but it doesn't mean that we won't. And we have a variety of ways of supporting them, but our intent is to uphold them and uphold their roles.
And certainly if we see that there's some extra kind of support required, we would certainly look at that. Absolutely.
Thank you. Trustee Pappen.
Thank you. Through the chair, Fiona Wellhauer, the supervisor at Pearson Nursery School, provided me with a copy of their report that they prepared for us for the car. So I've provided the trustees all with a copy. If it doesn't pan out that we're able to visit all the schools, please feel free to contact her. I think you all have a card with her business information if you want to have a tour of the nursery school and find out a little bit more about it.
Through Chair Amos, some of you were unable to attend all schools or whatever. I'm looking at taking you, going on tour with you to those of you that were unable to. It'd be a bit quicker than the one the principals gave, and we'd try to do pretty rapidly, but and we would include the nursery in that. I'll just trying to sort out some dates that I'll send out to you. So. Superintendent Podberg.
Just in terms of the work of the park, they've requested tours as well, so they'd felt it would be really benefit if they could go and see, boots on the floor and see the school. So we'll be setting that up for them as well. Just wanted trustees to know that.
Thank you. Trustee Oliver.
Through you, Chair. With respect to the Burlington PAR, so I'm aware that our planning department does an excellent job in creating the long-term accommodation plan with excellent projections going out 10 years, and that's been very reliable and consistent. I want to ensure that our planning department can work with the City of Burlington's planning department in getting the city's projections and estimates for the population of Burlington, particularly how that looks with respect to each school's neighborhood, what the demographics are, and what's anticipated to happen with those neighborhoods. I think it's important that as the recommendations are being studied and considered, that all that information is looked at within the context of the population projections and demographics.
Through Chair Amos to Trustee Oliver, you're right. Our planning department does work with Burlington City, their planning department, as they do with Oakville Town and Milton and Halton Hills. The planning departments work together. In fact, we have to access a lot of their information at times. Birth rates in the area, houses sold, developments, building permits, those kinds of things are made available to our planning department so that they can plan. And to give trustees, there has been some questions raised. In the informal meeting, or in the information meetings that I did at the beginning, I presented some data that some of the schools in Burlington, and there's no point naming them at this point, but everybody will know who they are, have had some challenges for some time. In 1999 and 2001, we added grade 7s and 8s to 2 of the secondary schools there because of low enrollment, to try to increase the number of students in the schools. So, there's been low enrollment for some time. Since 2006 to 2016, there's been a decrease in the number of students in our secondary schools in Burlington by 500. And so we rely on the LTAP, and the LTAP is produced every year, and so it adds a year every year. And when we've gone back, I've gone back and looked from 2006 to 2016, there is not a lot of variance in our LTAPs. The most problematic area has been Milton. The secondary school growth in Milton in 10 years has been a 50% increase. And yet, our projections have rarely been below, the variance in them have rarely been below, they've rarely been above 10% out. There's been times where they have been. So, and as a board, our secondary school enrollment has been very consistent in terms of our projections and our actuals, and it's 2, 4, 5% over about 17,000 students. So in those information sessions, I talked about 1999 and 2001, and that there was the trajectory of the schools in Burlington was downward. And people will question our projections going forward, but for at least 16 years, at least, the trajectory of those schools has been a downward slope. And what is undeniable right now is that there are currently sitting 1,800 empty pupil places in those schools in Burlington. That's a school and a half. What's undeniable is that in 10 years, the population of those schools has decreased by 500 students. So, yes, we learn about the developments and we hear about the developments from Burlington City Council, but they put their plans into action, and when they put an action plan, until we know that the shovels are in the ground and those things going on, it's very difficult to plan for those things. And if there is going to be increased intensification, which many are saying is going to happen in Burlington, and some of it's going to happen for sure, we would need to fill those 1,800 places, we need about an over 30% increase in students to fill those 1,800s than we currently have. That's a significant number of kids that would have to be in these new developments. Now, we don't have to get to 1,800 to make the schools viable, right? And I'm not saying they're not viable now, but we don't have to get to actually 1,800. But to get to the optimum, in terms of on-the-ground capacity, there has to be an increase of about 30% in those students. I'm hearing a lot about younger families moving in, and I'm not trying to discount it, But that's a good thing, because if they weren't, we wouldn't be replacing the students that are graduating now. So, you know, there's a lot of talk about our numbers. The purpose of the park, I know people will question the numbers, and there's advocacy around those questions, and there'll be actions around those actions, or around those questions, and so on. But the Board of Trustees supported the preliminary PAR, and the preliminary PAR was based on the numbers that we had. So therefore, the purpose now is to investigate and work with the park to come up with options to address the numbers that were presented in the original PAR report. So, you know, I can't really say much more than that, because other than we do work closely with them. And these are big numbers that we're talking about. It's not a handful of students. It's 1,800. That's a school and a half. Presently, and I will say this, presently in Oakville, and I don't have the numbers exactly on my head, but in Oakville, our average number of students in a high school is around 1,300. In Milton, it's around 1,100 students per school. In Halton Hills, it's just under 1,100. In Burlington, it's 780 students per high school as an average. And that includes Frank Hayden, which is about 1,800. So, or whatever it is, 1,500, I think, 15, right? Yeah, 1,500, sorry. So, you know, that kind of data, I mean, people can argue and debate our projections or say we're not taking into account developments, but they can't debate that. That's the evidence that's there right now. So, anyway, I hope that answers your question. It was a bit of a pontification, but I hope I answered it. And I think it's important, and we will share these numbers with trustees. We will share them with the park so people can understand what these are. But to go right back to the original part of your question, we work with the City of Burlington, our planning department does, as they do in the other municipalities in Halton, because we're the Halton District Board, right? So.
Thank you. Follow up on that?
It's just a quick comment. So I just think to put everybody's mind at rest and to help to move the process forward and lay some of those questions to rest, it's important to kind of document, you know, make a list of all the facts that we know, the data that was used, and what comes from the City of Burlington. What do they know? What do they project around their urban planning and development and the impact that'll have on demographics of the neighborhoods, so that that is parked and that is the context within which the recommendations will then be assessed and decisions made.
And we will do that as much as we can. Sometimes it's difficult with the projections from the cities because, you know, a development comes in and they've got to get a permit, and then there's an OMB ruling, you know, people do not want a particular condominium development, or they don't want a particular height, and there's all these, and sometimes it takes years. So, but certainly we are documenting it. We will provide and are providing all this information to the park and to trustees. I'm afraid that we may not be able to satisfy all with it, but we're going to do our best with the data that we have.
Thank you. Trustee Reynolds.
Thank you. So I have a comment to ponder and a question regarding the park, please. So I too have been receiving a great deal of calls and emails and questions, generally asking me for information on what the next public meeting would look like. I think that, as you heard Trustee Grubentz mention, there was a lot of, I want to say, comments that I received that people who had attended had different, I want to say, expectations than what was communicated, meaning they were looking for a two-way conversation. And it was really binary. It was one way. So my comment is, if you are considering an open mic type forum as part of what the next public meeting could look like, I would think that my feeling on the street is that would be very well received. I think that, I think this process is difficult to go through, and I think it takes time. But I think just as a courtesy to if we're asking for engagement from the community, that we offer that opportunity. My next, my question is regarding, I believe that the PAR emails at the schools and at our central Halton District School Board secondary school PAR email have been getting responses and letters. Certainly some of them I have copied trustees, which have been great. But my concern is, when would trustees be receiving all the communications that are coming in, or is it the intention to share it with us? Because I would like the courtesy of looking at it as it comes in. One of my commitments to my community is to make sure that I understand all the communications that are going back and forth. I want to understand and hear from all the communities. So I was just wondering what was the expectation going forward.
Thank you. Through you, Chair Amos, to Trustee Reynolds. Let me comment on your first one. We recognize the challenges with that first public meeting, and we have debriefed with Ipsos Reid. I can't say how the next one will look, but we certainly are learning the lesson of the first one, and have debriefed around that, and they're fully aware as well. In terms of the open mic, it would be separate from the park. It would be kind of like the information sessions, but we're going to talk about it. As I said, I'm not convinced it contributes much more than what we can, but I'm certainly prepared to, I'm open to thinking about it and say maybe we do it. Now, with the communications, most of those communications are on the website, the Q&A. They take basically, that I'm experiencing, 3 forms, or maybe 4 forms. But the first one is they're asking questions, and those get posted and so on. And then I will get an email, but you are all copied on that email as well. But then I'm also getting some, and phone calls, that are to me. I don't feel it would be appropriate for me to share those unless I was to ask the person who had sent it. An email directed to me is one I'm going to answer to that individual. I'm not going to then pass it on to trust, because I don't know, maybe they don't want that to happen or whatever else, right? And I know that some of our planning department have had individual queries around some data from citizens, but it's directed right to General Manager Renzella, and the same thing. And he would be in the same boat as I am. I don't think it would be appropriate for us to share emails that have been directed specifically to one of us or to Superintendent Podrebaric, who's probably getting some now as well. But anything that's common, I have no issue with providing those to the trustees. But I think you probably have seen all the ones that, like, if you don't mind, give me an example, then.
Yes, no, I'm not speaking about the personal emails that come to you on that topic. I'm looking for the ones that are directed to the Burlington Secondary School PAR email or the individual school PAR emails, because that's shared amongst the PAR committee members. We're not a part of the PAR committee members. So my question was, when will we be seeing that? I know we have a trustee delegate who is obviously has privy to that information, but I would love to know when we'll see it, because I'm trying to plan, our time going forward, and I realize there is an enormous amount of communication coming in. And I really, really owe it to the community to spend time and reading to understand people's opinions. And my concern is if it was, provided to us further down in the process, we may not have the courtesy of time to give it those due diligence as I think we need to.
Through you, Chair Amos, to Trustee Reynolds, I have no issue in providing that. We can, we'll talk about it on Monday, package it up and get it to you. That's no problem. Or post it or something. Or maybe give you access to it. I don't know.
Superintendent
We'll figure it out.
Griffin would like to speak to it.
Oh,
If I may, because through the director to Trustee Reynolds, the intent of the LBP Park at gmail.com or hdsb.ca was, it's intended to be a personal email between the two members of the park to preserve their identity and their email. So their personal email or their corporate email, company email, was not available to the public. In talking with Superintendent Podge-Barrick, we did let the park members know that this was their email and privacy would be preserved. We did talk to them about FOI a little bit, but the intent of these emails was so the members of the community in Burlington would have an email address that wasn't their personal one. We did make a commitment that we would not be searching through that email address or the contents of their emails. That's what was suggested and committed to them when we created those emails. So I thought it was important to clarify that.
I'm sorry you've actually run out of time. You'll have to go back on the list. Trustee L. Harrison.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess I'll continue on this topic line. Firstly, just to say that the projection methodology is posted on our website for people that are interested on the LTAP page. I know that's something that was really of interest to the Southwest Oakville community around the Lakeshore Woods piece. So that is up there and it is quite informative. Secondly, with respect to the Burlington PAR, is just this idea about big theater open mic and the effectiveness or not of that type of forum for the kind of conversation that I think that we want to have with the community. I think when we went out the first time, we raised expectations by saying things like we wanted to engage people and we wanted to harness their ideas and really generate creativity and ideas to help us to solve this problem that we have. So a big theater open mic may not be the best and most effective way to do that, just my opinion, but there are other ways to engage people in small group discussions with members of staff or the park committee and so on. I just think that we still have the opportunity and it would be great to utilize that with our second meeting, and I'm sure the facilitation group will be able to offer support in that regard.
Chair Amos, through Chair Amos to Trustee L. Harrison, we're reluctant to diverge from the actual park committee process simply because we don't want to, we don't want to go from that process. I have no issues with consulting more with the committee, but in those information sessions, I did say we would be surveying the community. I get what you're saying around the expectations, that we do want to hear their ideas and so on. And we, as I've said, I'm committed to take a look, see what we can do. But there are many vehicles to get their ideas to us, many. And we've provided some of those vehicles. What I'm hearing is people want a big open mic. That's what I'm hearing. I'm not hearing what you're hearing. Maybe I'm wrong. But this is what I'm hearing, that people want an open mic. They want us standing up there, and they want a microphone so they can give us their questions, and we try to answer them and voice their opinions and concerns. That's what I'm hearing is what people want. If that's what they want, I'm okay doing it. I'm not sure what value it adds to the process, though. And so, to your point, yeah, there's lots of ways to do it, but the park is supposed to do that with the park itself, and then they go back to school councils and they have those conversations, and the trustee representative brings information here and so on. All those things are supposed to happen within the park process. I think what I'm being asked tonight is different, or not asked, but to consider. Let's put it that way. And I'm totally prepared to consider it. So I'm looking at the trustees. If my interpretation's incorrect, I'm fine if it is or it isn't. But that's what I'm hearing.
Superintendent Poilievre, did you want to say something?
Well, just to add to that, we've set 2 meetings up there, the second and third public meeting. They're really parallel meetings. It's the same process twice in a North Burlington site and then a South Burlington site. So that was how it was structured. The loose intent of that meeting is to update people, the public, around, okay, we've had 3 working meetings of the park. Here's where we now are, and to get feedback on that. So in other words, we're looking at these options now as a park. Give us your feedback on those. So it isn't a generalized, it isn't the intention of those meetings aren't to be a general airing of the grievances, but it's supposed to be a more focused, here's the options the park is looking at. What do you think about those options? So and that's hence why we decided two separate nights to optimize the feedback we can collect for the park members on those nights. That was the general idea behind how it was set up.
Thank you. Trustee Gerbens.
Thank you, Chair Amos. So this is, a slight sidestep to the PAR, but it is related, actually. So the Alton West Triangle Boundary Review Steering Committee met in November, December to analyze and review scenarios with regards to directing students to elementary and secondary schools. The houses in the area have yet to be built and occupied, but students are expected to start coming to the area in late spring, so we needed to find a place for them. A recommendation has been shared with the director from the committee, and the committee felt it was a priority that the trustee-approved scenario, so once it gets through the board, inform the work of the Burlington Secondary School Program and Accommodation Review Committee. So we have a unique situation at the beginning of this year because when a report comes January 25th, the very next week is the board meeting to vote on. So there isn't that cushion of time for people to look at the report, decide to delegate, and perhaps do that. So the report is scheduled at this point to come to the table January 25th with the final vote anticipated for February 1st. So if people become aware of the report on January 25th, they've already, according to our bylaw, our delegation bylaw, missed the opportunity to delegate. And the second problem is that if the board says, oh, wait, let's push this back another to the next February board meeting, the Program and Accommodation Review Committee will have met twice already, and so we're losing that opportunity to inform the park with the results of this particular recommendation. So is there a way to release the report early so that the public may have an opportunity to view, digest, and possibly comment on the contents before the compacted trustee voting schedule?
Director Miller.
Through you, Chair Amos, to Trustee Gerbens and all trustees, it's a good question, and the awkwardness of this is not conducive to giving the public an opportunity to delegate, for sure. So here's what we plan to do is the report comes to Admin Council this coming Monday, so that's 14, 15, 16th, right? January 16th. And then after it comes through admin council, we'll put draft on the report, and we will send it to all trustees and put it on our website. And then we'll have it at committee of the whole on Wednesday, January 18th, in the program and accommodation section. So there'll be trustees will be able to have a conversation, and it'll be publicized on the Monday, and people will have an entire week before they have to decide whether they delegate the following Wednesday, which is February the 1st, right? No, and then and then the report will come January 25th. It will no longer be in draft form, unless there's some radical differences at committee of the whole. I can't imagine that it would change very much. But people then will be able to have seen the report for at least a week. They can, and then they'll have a longer period of time to decide whether they're going to delegate or not, because the report will be voted on February 1st. So if we get it out on the Monday, January 16th, that gives them, 15, 16 days before it actually appears for a vote. And it gives them about a week and a half, 10, 11 days that they can before they have to get in a request to delegate. Does that work?
I think that should work if we can let the public know or remind the public that actually our committee of the whole meeting is a public meeting, and we do welcome the public to it, and there is an opportunity to comment at that point. That might also help with people commenting.
And Dale has just said we could do it as a media release as well. So we'll put it out.
Excellent.
And tweet it out so people won't know.
I think that's a good compromise, that would allow the community, and that we can all do our best to try and share it through the social media, so as many people can be aware of it. Great. Okay, Trustee Reynolds.
Thank you. I would just like to follow up.
So let Leah go on first, and then whoever else is there next.
Okay, thank you.
I apologize.
I would just like to review what the comment made by Superintendent Truffin. Thank you for that clarification. I certainly don't want to intervene into a privacy email. So I'm just wondering, so a question there, will there be a report being brought forward from the PAR members as to sort of the quantity or the issues raised, or is there some sort of compilation that will happen from the information that's going through to these emails? Because I'll tell you something, one of the comments that I received, actually a couple of comments and calls I got over the Christmas vacation, was that people assumed trustees were getting these emails. In fact, we're not. We're only getting them if individuals, constituents copy us on the information, and to some extent, I've received a lot where we've been copied. So that would be my one question. The other question would be, who is receiving and responding to the questions and comments that come into the general Halton District School Board Secondary School PAR email? And will we have access to those?
Through you, Chair Amos, I'll start, and then Superintendent Padre-Barry. On your first point, at all the park meetings themselves, minutes will be taken. And so issues raised by the park members will be incorporated into the minutes, and they'll be posted on the website as well. And if trustees want them separate, that's not an issue. There's no problem. Scott can arrange to just have them sent to all trustees. But the issues that park members would have heard presumably will come up in the committee meetings and therefore appear in the minutes of the committee meetings. Scott, is there anything else about that before I go to the second part?
The final report to trustees will be a very thick chronicle of everything, and usually the back part, what I'd say is we will put a digest of all of those emails that have come into us and the answers in the back. It's a supplementary chunk in the back of the final report.
And Trustee Reynolds, I might need a bit of clarification with you because, or from you. You asked about the questions and stuff that comes in, how we're answering. Like those are the ones posted on the website, and various people answer them depending on the topic. So when they come in, it's someone in planning that picks it up, but then they bring it down to either school operations or whatever. But the question and the answer is posted. So is that, I'm not sure, is there something I'm missing?
Thank you. And I'm so glad you're clarifying that, because that's, I was asking constituents, to send all their information to that email directly so that someone responds to it. But I just assumed that as trustees we would be seeing that. But if you're saying that everything coming in is actually posted on the Q&A, that's good to know.
Not the comments, just the questions and the answers to those questions. Okay. And depending on, like I said, the question, if it's a financial question, Lucy's answering it, planning, Dom, operations, it's someone around this table. But if someone just sends us a comment to that site, we haven't been posting those.
So may I ask what is happening to those? Because I'll tell you from my perspective, understanding the community values and concerns is really part of what I feel our responsibility to understand is. And I think we have I was assuming that we would have access to that so that we were hearing from everyone.
Well, I don't know what's happening with them. Maybe Superintendent Truffin. However, I'm not. The comments might be all coming from one person. And, unless, I don't know. Gord, do you have anything to respond?
I can just speak
we haven't historically posted comments. Some comments we get are really inappropriate. And, we're certainly not going to post those. So now we're being in the role of censors as well. I'm a bit.
I would just say, Director Miller, that being part of 2 boundary reviews, the emails that come in, the questions are being answered, and if it's a new question, it's being put up on our FAQ. But I would agree with Director Miller. Some of the commentary we would never post on our website because, quite frankly, it's not a question; it's opinion. I don't know about the full emails. I don't know about giving that to trustees. That's just something that we've not done in boundary reviews.
And I'll follow up. As I said at the beginning, we're working with Ipsos Reid to do a consultation process with the community. And as we did with the staff and with the students, there is what do you call it? Not a subjective part. What's that? A written part at the end where they can make some comments. What do you call it? An open-ended question. I imagine that will be part of that. So you will all have that information once we do that, and that will be going out to that will be going out to the community. So you'll get all that information. It's a difficult process. I can tell you from experience, some of those comments come in, and if there's not a question attached and it gets posted on the website, this might sound awful. There's inflammatory and libelous stuff on them sometimes, with names mentioned. And we've got a lot, our staff is busy. Are we going to start? I get what you're saying, and we'll get you as much information as we can, but, and certainly the consultation process, I think, will provide what you're looking for. That's how we're anticipating. Ipsos Reid showed us, as an example, how they consulted around new health guide manual and what they did across the country on that. And I think the people around the table were quite impressed with what they did with that. And that was Canada-wide. They talked to us about what they did with doctor-assisted suicide consultations. Again, Canada-wide. So they're helping to develop some kind of consultation process that will go out to the community, as we said. But Scott, do you have anything to
Just practically, the volume to that site hasn't been big, and the nature of the questions have been more technical, the ones that have come in. I have been seeing in planning, seeing who they farm out, and then if they're questions and they've asked to go to the park, getting them to the park. So we're not getting a ton of advocacy. I think, with all due respect, they know who the decision makers are on this, and so I think our sense from that volume, which has been pretty low, is that you're probably getting most of the advocacy related ones. If they're really technical questions, we're answering those, but it's a couple a week at this point. And they've been really pretty good questions. We haven't had to filter out. Now, keep in mind, the working meetings are just starting and the decision's many months away. So we haven't, that site, that generic park site that goes to planning, hasn't been inundated with, there's not a surge of emails on there. The park members, I'll check with them and see what the volume they've been getting. Some are getting, from many school communities, they aren't getting much of anything. I think it's pretty isolated based on school community at this point.
I also like to suggest we do have a trustee rep on the committee, and I think if she felt she saw something that we needed to know, she would share that with us. Am I not correct? If it was information that you felt all trustees should be aware of.
Yes and no. It's very difficult to subjectify which is important information to you and which isn't, because every single email that has come in is incredibly important as far as I'm concerned as a member on that committee. And actually at this point, I'm CC'd on everything you're CC'd on. I'm not sure that I'm getting anything that you're not getting. But I would be hesitant to suddenly try to judge what is important and what is not important, because I could make an error in judgment, and I would not want to do that in this process. I want to approach this process with the best due diligence and integrity that I can.
And I think we all appreciate that. Trustee Oliver.
Thank you. So I'm just kind of thinking about what are the key things here and how that might help with the process. So from the public's perspective, I believe the public wants to make sure that they can advocate, and that's through expression of their, values and beliefs and perceptions. The second piece, I think, and maybe that's where that open mic desire stems from, which may not be the best way to do it, is that the public wants to make sure that we have looked at everything from every perspective, considered every piece of data, every kind of analytical viewpoint. And maybe that's where, instead of doing an open mic, which is probably not the most efficient and productive way, is just adding another bit to the website, just as we have the frequently asked questions. There may be I don't know how you'd word it, but it's something to the effect, what else should we be thinking about or looking at, or what piece of data is important? And that's where the more technical things would go for consideration. And then I think the third piece is all trustees want to make sure that we've seen it all, that we have the ability to consider it, that we've thought about it, so we come to the table well equipped and prepared. So I don't know if that helps to shape the process a little bit and streamline it and make it a little bit more effective and efficient.
Through Chair Amos to Trustee Oliver. Yeah, we're prepared to do anything that supports the trustees in making this decision. I can tell you the report you will get will be about this thick. And there'll be lots and lots of data in there, and there'll be narrative in there, and there'll be all sorts of things in there. And when the park raises something, or a member of the park raises something, we're endeavoring to get that data for them, and we're endeavoring to get whatever it is they're asked. And that vehicle is providing the information to the park. I'm not opposed to putting something on the website, what are we missing? But I'm not sure we'll get anything more than we are. I mean, we could put it on there, and yeah, it's tricky, and I think we've got to be careful we don't get clouded by the emotions of it. At one of the information sessions, someone yelled out a question to me, and I said, "This is not a question and answer, but I'll answer that question since you asked." And I answered the question. And then someone else shouted something at me. And I said, "Well, I answered the question." And they said, "No, I didn't." So, or whoever it was, I have no idea who it was. So, was it, I didn't answer, they just didn't agree with the answer? I think it's more they didn't agree with the answer, didn't like the answer. And so this is the challenge of this thing, and this is our concern around an open mic. I'm not convinced that it provides much value, notwithstanding the comments by Tracy. I get what Tracy's saying. There are ways to do this, small groups, focus groups, and all these other things. But that's what the park is. You know, there's 2 representatives from every school. There's a principal from every school. There's a trustee rep. There's a city rep. There's a superintendent chairing it. All those school council reps represent school councils, and the additional person was selected however the school selected them. Or no, we kind of pulled, not random people out. We did a bit of vetting, but we pulled those people out. At some point, you know, the cards are going to have to be on the table, and what are those cards going to be? At this point, I don't know what they are either, but the park is to explore the options and not question the preliminary PAR process. That's the advocacy part, and the community will do that advocacy part. They'll do that by contacting you. They'll do that by delegations. They'll do all those other things. But in the park process, if Straught and the team presents numbers and the entire committee meeting's taken up with people arguing about the numbers, it's not contributing to the process, because the numbers are what triggered the report to begin with. And it's the report that's out in the community. So that's the great challenge around this. I want to, yeah, anyway.
Okay, quickly, go ahead.
So, in theory, the council rep on park represents the school council, the school. So we need to ensure that there is a good process for those reps to have a venue at their school where they collect feedback and back and forth and then feed it up to park again, no?
I would argue that's their job.
Yes.
I would argue it's
Yes.
their job. It
is their job. It is their job to set up that process in their school, but they need to be enabled to do that by their principal or whatever. That's got to be put into place. Yeah.
Sorry, I would agree with
Yeah,
that 100%.
because I think often people go off and do this, but they forget that they're actually representing that group, so there needs to be a back and forth dialogue.
Trustee Harvey Hope.
Thank you. So I just want to make sure I understand how this is changing, in that in previous parks, we've had because we were using a different email server, et cetera, we had the opportunity to see basically everything that went to a general ABC email, or Ward 4 email, Ward 3 email. And then we could read them all in the original content and whatever. I'm not talking about posting it on websites. I'm just saying this, that the 13 of us could read them. So what I heard you say is now, instead, because we have this third-party facilitator, they are going to absorb all of this, generate this very thick document, and compile it all and give it to us as in this is sort of the feel of all the emails. And so if a particular constituent wants to make sure that the trustees read it, they have no real way of making sure that we've got it unless they copy us. Is that what it's boiled down to?
I don't know, but I am quite sure if a particular constituent wants a trustee to read it, they'll get to the trustee.
I understand that. What I'm just saying is that I want to make sure that because of the way it has worked in the past, we were given basically copies of every email that was sent to a particular general email. If that isn't happening this time, or because of our change of email service and stuff, we don't have the same facility of a conference like we used to, then just to be clear, that in order for us people to make sure that that we've seen it, the copying the trustees when they send a message to the general one or whatever is an option for them, which most people have figured out. But it's just that I want to make sure, because in the old system we went and found them and would read them all, or we got them given to us, in April, and we would read them all. So I just want to make sure I understand that I'm not supposed to be going to find some emails, and I'll just read the ones that come to me.
Yeah, that's correct. That's correct. So.
Thank you. Trustee L. Harrison.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair, and hopefully it's okay to change the topic at this point in time. Notwithstanding that we've endured a number of different climactic zones in the boardroom tonight, I'm not sure whether now we're going polar, it feels like slightly. But maybe it's a signal that we're nearing the end of the meeting and we're acclimatizing for outdoor environments. Speaking of which, my question is with respect to the decision to cancel buses this week. I was just wondering, I had a number of inquiries in that regard. In South Oakville, it was somewhat balmy, and I don't think it was that way in other places. So I was just wondering if you could describe the process by which those decisions are made. Thank you.
That's a very good question, Trustee L. Harrison. And actually, so through you, Chair Amos, I'm actually going to either write something out or put a little video together on the website on how those decisions are made so the public can see that, because I had some queries as well. But the way the decision's made, I can give you the chronological events. At 5:40 in the morning, I got a phone call from Karen Lacroix saying that the weather's bad out there. Their spotters are saying that, the weather's bad and the forecast is calling for worse. They're checking with other boards, other transportation consortiums, not other boards, because I check with the other boards. And she says, but I'll get back to you. But at this moment, it looks like we might be canceling buses. And my question was, in all zones? She said, in all zones, based on the forecast. And the forecast at that time was freezing rain. In fact, in most of the GTA, it was freezing rain. And so then at 5:47, because I've got it memorized, 5:47, actually my wife had it memorized. 5:47, Karen phoned me back and she said, we've spoken Dufferin Peel, and Peel transportation is shutting down, and York is shutting down, or stopping the buses. And I said, what's our decision? She says, just one more call. We're just checking one more look at the weather forecast, blah, blah, blah. At 5:48, Karen phoned me back and said, the bus companies are advising that the buses shouldn't run based on the forecast. 5:49, I phoned the Catholic director who agreed with me that the buses should be off. And then we swung our stuff into action. I'd also phoned Tony Pontus as well in between that to see what Tony was doing, as the director in Peel. And so that's how the decision's made. And I had the conversation with a parent earlier or later in the day who said to me, when you made that decision, no snow had fallen in Burlington. And I said, yeah. I said, but I can tell you in Toronto it was freezing rain and it was heading west. And Oakville was getting it. And Halton Hills and Milton were getting it. And then the problem becomes, when do you make the decision? Our AP says by 6:30. We try to make it by 6 o'clock so that parents have an opportunity to figure out what they're going to do that day, particularly with the little ones, the secondary school kids. So the decision's made in consultations with transportation, our Catholic counterparts, and usually the boards around us. We don't talk to Hamilton very often because Hamilton's got a policy when the buses are off, schools are closed. They're the only board that I know of with that policy. So I usually don't even talk to Hamilton. I talk to Upper Grand, I talk to Peel, Dufferin Peel, Halton Catholic, sometimes York, and Toronto we rarely talk to as well because Toronto rarely shuts anything down because they don't have very many bus kids. They got TTC and all that stuff. And then with all that, Paul and I align our decisions and we base it on the information that Karen provides for us and so on. So, and that's the way it goes. I said to the same parent, I said, I tell you, the director's two worst nightmares around the school. He says, the first one is you decide to keep the schools open and by 8:30, it's a flipping blizzard out there and it's a mad storm and you got buses on the road and you got kids in the school. And now it's getting worse and worse. How do you get the kids home? Because the buses might not be able to pick them up. And the second one is you call it at 6 o'clock and at 7 o'clock the sun comes out and it's a beautiful day the rest of the day. Then you look like an idiot. They say, why'd you call it school closure or buses? It's a beautiful day. So those are the things. But one of the things that parents don't understand, and we need to do a better job of letting them know, our buses do double and triple runs. So if the weather's bad in the morning and a bus is 10 minutes late for the first pickup, they're probably 20 minutes late for the second pickup. They could be 30 minutes or an hour late for the next pickup. And kids could be standing outside for that length of time. Usually people don't leave their little ones out on their own, but intermediate and secondary school students could be standing out waiting for a bus for an hour because the bus is being delayed. That's part of the thinking as well. We know the buses are all going to be delayed and slowed down. So we're going to put something together, put it on the website, so the community sees how it is or how we make that decision. So.
Thank you, Trustee Gerbens.
Well, my daughter's utterly convinced that turning her pajamas around backwards and putting ice cubes in the toilet totally made you make that decision. Yeah, it was her. And boy, I have bust kids. Anyways, so they were happy to have the day off. But that's not my comment. My comment is actually congratulations. I want to shout out congratulations to MP Karina Gould, who is a graduate from Robinson High School 2005 for her appointment to the federal cabinet at the tender age of 29, which makes me feel very old, to be the new Minister for Democratic Institutions. So congratulations, Karina.
Yeah, that's very exciting. Trustee Harvey Hope.
One final kind of additional question about the cancellation of buses. I have fond memories of a Valentine's Day years ago when the buses were canceled for good reason, and I bravely as a parent thought it would be a good thing if I took my children to the school. It was about 6 kilometers away, and I almost didn't think I was going to make it home when I picked those children up to get home. So from that day on, I always said, okay, if the buses are canceled, there's a very good reason. It doesn't mean you can't get to school, but I may not be able to pick you up. And if I get you there, with the school bus canceled. I also appreciate the fact that they have implemented a new procedure that says if you're a bus student, you're automatically not expected to have to call in so that they don't get 8 or 9 or 100 calls. But I now have a senior student who found a different way to school, again, because it's summative week, and promptly found out he'd been marked absent for every class and couldn't find a way to undo it. So maybe somebody could follow that particular method up, that if the automatic marking everybody absent is done, I really hope it undoes itself somewhere along the line, that so these kids don't end up with absence on days when they actually are there. So I'm just pointing that one out, in that I was really amazed that, I did see it in the news release and said, don't worry, don't call. If your kid's a bus student, you don't have to worry about it, which is great. Because in the old days, you kind of got this weird yes or no. But now it's the opposite happening. If a grade 12 student actually does show up, because apparently at this particular high school, most of the grade 12s showed up. I mean, some of the 9s may not have. But
Thank you. Vice Chair Graves.
Just for my southern neighbors, on Tuesday morning, my 20-minute ride to work along Steeles Avenue, kind of between Milton and Halton Hills, took an hour. And that was between 8 and 9 in the morning. And the freezing rain that was predicted, because I'm a mean mom, I sent my bus student to school had my husband drop him off. And when I picked him up, it was freezing rain. So that's.
Thank you. And seeing no further speakers, could I get a motion to adjourn? Trustee Gerbent, seconded by Trustee L. Harrison. All those in favor? There you go. You're the one you like the best. And that passes unanimously. Thank you very much, everyone, and good night.